Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you a recent reads video. So it has been about 3 weeks since I filmed a recent reads video because the end of the month kind of fell in a strange place for my kind of schedule in terms of filming, and then I was away last weekend for a fabulous time in Sydney for 4 days. And so I had to pre-film the videos for that week, and so I didn't film a recent reads video then. So I technically have since the 24th of May to talk about, so about just over 3 weeks, and I've got 14 books to talk about. So I'm actually going to split this video into two, and I'm going to film 2 recent reads videos so that this video isn't super long. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the 8 books that I read from the 25th through the 31st of May. I'll talk about those 8 books in this video, and then I'll talk about the only 6 books that I've read so far in June in my next recent reads video, which will be coming up straight after this video in a couple of days, just to split things up and not have this video be super long, hopefully. And also because it's been a couple of weeks since I read most of these books now, so I probably don't have as much to say about them as I would have if I'd filmed it quite quickly afterwards. So let's jump straight in and talk about these 8 books. So the first book I want to talk about is The Couple on Cedar Close by Ava Lavender. This is a NetGalley arc that I had. It's a thriller. It's basically about, we mainly focus on a woman who at the start of the novel we know had a very strained relationship with her husband. This big kind of debacle goes down at a barbecue that we don't know the full details of. We then skip pretty quickly forward several months and we know that the couple has now split, and that there's been some issues, and that then the husband is found brutally murdered in the separated ex-wife whatever's apartment or house, whatever, and she can't remember what happened. So obviously there's like a prime suspect for this like brutal slaying that has taken place. So I enjoyed this book, but for me, it was very predictable. You get to a certain, I had predicted it before you kind of get to this point and had kind of figured out what was going on. But then you get to a certain point in the novel too, and then the reader is made aware. It's one of those stories where you're made aware kind of what's going on before the ending, and then you follow through with it from there, which isn't necessarily my favorite way to tell the story unless you do get that kind of shock twist at that point. Where you find things out, but that didn't happen because I'd found it quite predictable. Having said that, I did really enjoy this book because there was something about Ava Lavender's writing style that I just found compulsively readable. I just wanted to read this book and just find out what was going on. I thought I knew what was going on, but like confirm my thoughts of what was going on, and then once the reader knows what's going on, to kind of figure out, well, what the hell's going to happen from here. It was very readable, and I read this very quickly. So I gave it an extra, so it's probably like a 3.5 star book. I gave it 3.75 because I did bump it up that extra quarter star just for how readable the book was. Like I literally like couldn't put this book down. So I gave that one 3.75 stars. I then read what was my favorite book that I read in May, which was The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Lesley Walton. So this is a kind of historical contemporary magical realism story. It follows the story of a girl named Ava Lavender who is born with wings. However, we go back and follow the story first through Ava's grandmother, and then through her mother, and then Ava's story. And it does have definite magical realism type of things going on throughout the whole story, right from the grandmother's part into Ava's part of the story. This book isn't super long. This book is just under 300 pages. And yet for Lesley Walton to manage to put all 3 generations' stories into this book and have you feel so completely like you know each of their stories and their lives and the characters themselves, I really don't know how she achieved that, but she really did. There is a big build-up in this story to an event that happens that I can't obviously talk about without spoiling it, but the build up to that event and then like the payoff like in that kind of scene like of that event was friggin' exquisite. Like this is just written so well. I will say, and this isn't an issue for me, but if you're the type of person who really needs all of your questions answered, this isn't the book for you. It's very much more of your type of open to interpretation type of ending, which doesn't bother me, particularly for the type of story that this is. I just thought this was so beautifully written. I loved all of the characters. Like I said, the payoff, the exquisite build up to that scene, and then with it all taking place, I just thought was so, so beautifully done. I also think that this book is stunning, and I ended up giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars. So there's that. I then read Lady Susan by Jane Austen. So this is an epistolary novel. It's told all in letters. So we're basically getting the story of Lady Susan, who has had, oh, the lighting just got real crap. Literally, that is the first time the sun has come out from behind the clouds, literally all day. And of course, it's done it right as I'm filming, and now I have weird lighting because I was relying on it being cloudy. Anyway, let's press on. So Lady Susan has had some kind of scandal go on. We don't really know the details of it, and she's then traveling to stay with the relationship I'm not clear on. I feel like it's either her brother or it may even be her brother-in-law of her deceased husband. And she has a daughter, and you get letters from all different characters. You get letters from her to her friend. You get letters from her sister-in-law, who's not a fan of hers. You get letters from the sister-in-law's brother. And there's just letters all back and forth through different parties, kind of telling the story of what goes on. It's very short. It took me quite a while to get into, if I'm being honest. For the first like third of it, I was pretty bored. It really took me a while, mainly I think to figure out who each of the characters were, because you swap around between the different letters to different parties. Like, you're not just following letters between two people. You'd have constantly changing parties on the letters. I found it hard to follow. I'd have to keep thinking, wait, which character is this? And because we never saw them in like a dialogue type way, it really was difficult to get to know who was who. But once I kind of wrapped my head around it a little bit more, I did really enjoy seeing the story unravel. And because you're getting it just in letter format, it leaves a lot open to kind of the reader's interpretation of who you think, like, people's motives you're not exactly clear on, because you're getting everyone's side of it from their side to the people that they're writing to, but you're never in that character's head. You never know exactly what is going on in terms of character motivations and what they're thinking. So in the end, I did quite enjoy it. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Definitely not my favorite Austen, like, at all. It's probably my least favorite of all of the Austen. Well, I really don't like Northanger Abbey, so maybe I'd like it better than that. I don't know. But yeah, I did enjoy it, but it's a bit of a strange one for Austen. Very different to her usual stuff. I then listened on audio to a book called Fitness Junkie by Lucy Sykes and Jo Piazza. This one was narrated on audio by Jo Piazza herself and also Susan Bennett. So this is a like women's fiction, contemporary chick lit type of novel about a woman who is like the part owner, the minority part owner of a wedding dress like design company. And she has recently kind of been going through a divorce. Like, she recently got divorced and she's gained some weight, and she's basically told by her company, there's a photo taken of her at a fashion show, like eating something unhealthy or whatever. I think it's a croffin, I believe, like a croissant / muffin, a croffin. And she's basically told by her company, like, she's got to take a leave of absence until she loses some weight, because her weight is like not good for the business. And so we then get her going on this journey of kind of self-discovery. Like, first off, she's angered, she's trying to lose weight, trying to make a decision about what she should do moving forward. She's going to all of these kind of crazy fad dieting, exercise type places and all this different stuff. There's a lot of there's some romance in there, a lot of like shenanigans that go on, I guess you could say. I enjoyed this book. The main issue I had with the book, because it is fairly enjoyable, the thing that I had a problem with is that the main character is coming from such a position of privilege that it was like almost mind-boggling to me. Like, I could not relate to this story, because yes, while I can relate to the part of having people comment on your weight and that being an issue and having Winifred get down and having weight issues. All of that I can relate to, but she is, like, she's done really well with this business. She's very wealthy. So she can take this, like, leave of absence for, like, 3 months and just do whatever she wants and go on all this crazy fitness stuff and not work and go on these crazy retreats and all of this stuff because she can afford to do that. When most of the population, like, could not do that. I could not afford to just all of a sudden, like, I've got a mortgage. I couldn't just be like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to work for 3 months. Like, maybe I could make that work, but there'd have to be some huge sacrifices in order for that to happen. I just found it really hard to relate to from that aspect because she's just never stressed about, you know, how am I going to afford to do this? And I just feel like for 99% of people, that would be a real concern in this situation. And so I just found it really hard to relate to. But for the most part, it was a pretty enjoyable book. I also did like, it's got a lot of kind of friendship stuff in there because the other owner of the business, the majority owner of the business, is like her best friend, like, that she grew up with. It's her, like, gay best friend, and so there's a lot of stuff kind of about the breakup of the friendship, and that is the part that she is struggling with almost more than anything, and that I did find very relatable. I have definitely gone through some friendship breakups in my life, and so that I enjoyed. But like I said, the really privileged position that she was coming from in the story, I just found very hard to relate to. But it was enjoyable. I'm not saying it wasn't enjoyable, it was. And in the end, I gave that a 3.5 star rating. I then read Shut Out by Cody Keplinger. So this is my second Cody Keplinger book. I had previously read The Duff and really enjoyed it, and so I wanted to read a few more from Cody Keplinger. And this is one of her early books, and it's basically about this girl who's in a relationship with a guy from her school. They've been in a relationship for a while, and this school has this, like, inter-school rivalry between the football and the soccer teams. And all of the girls at the school are really unhappy about being abandoned all the time for their guys to, you know, anytime anything happens, like, in the rivalry, they'll drop everything else that's going on to go, like, retaliate and take care of it. And it's escalated quite a lot. Like, there's some injuries that have taken place due to this rivalry and all of that type of thing, and the girls in the school are sick of it. And so they come together and decide to go on a sex strike, and that all of them are going to simultaneously start refusing to have sex with their partners, and that, hi baby, and that they're going to not have sex with their partners and hope that they can get the guys to listen to them and understand that this rivalry is stupid. I went into this book quite wary. Even though I had enjoyed Cody Keplinger's previous book, I thought that the storyline of this had a lot of potential to be problematic, I guess you would say. I didn't find that. For the most part, I thought this was really well done. This book has so much girl power in terms of, like, girls supporting girls. These girls coming together to decide to go on this sex strike, and then they start all supporting each other in all of their issues, and they have these, like, weekly or fortnightly or however often it is, sleepovers where they all talk about the issues that they're having and supporting each other and trying to help each other through their problems. And a lot of the girls, there is some girl hate at the start between some of the characters, and some thinking that the other ones are slutty or whatever, and all of that gets resolved in, like, a healthy way of them realizing, hey, maybe that because a character or a person isn't making the same decisions that I maybe would make, or they're living their life in a different way to me, doesn't necessarily mean that they're a terrible person or a slut or whatever. And so all of that was just Cody Keplinger is just knocking it out of the park for me every time. It's the same thing I had with The Duff. I thought, oh, this could get a bit of an issue, be a bit problematic, and then I just find that she handles things so well, and I end up coming out of her books feeling quite empowered and quite, like, happy with the way that she's discussed things. And it also does do a lot of calling out of double standards between the sexes. You know, that it's all right for boys to, like, it's openly said on the page numerous times about how a boy can sleep with a lot of girls and is just considered, like, a hero, but if a girl does it, then she's a slut. All of those things, it's all talked about on the page. Loved it. Really, really, really enjoyed it. I ended up giving that a 4-star rating. I then read Reckoning by Kate Tiernan. It's the first book in this final bind-up, so book 13 in the series. This one, excuse me, is told mainly from, it's not from the original character's point of view, it's from a different character's point of view. So to the overall arc of the series felt potentially kind of unnecessary, but I do enjoy that character, and I, for the most part, enjoyed the storyline that was going on in here, so it didn't overly bother me too much, but I do recognize that you probably could have completely left this book out of the series and still had the exact same outcome, if you know what I mean. So I ended up giving that a 3.25 star rating. I then read my least favorite book that I read in May, which was Ruin Falls by Jenny Milchman. So this is a, I also listened to that one on audio. It's narrated by Cassandra Campbell. It's a thriller novel. It's about a woman who, her and her husband and her 2 children are going on this road trip to visit her husband's parents, who they haven't had very much to do with. Her husband and the parents have had a quite restrained relationship, but they're going on this trip to see them. They decide to stay overnight in a motel on the way, and when the main character wakes up in the morning, her 2 children are gone. You find out very quickly in the novel, like this isn't a spoiler, it comes up pretty much straight away, that then the husband goes as well, and the husband has kidnapped the children. Like he's taken the children. And the one thing I found interesting about the story is this whole issue of it's not considered kidnapping by the police because the husband's taken them, and it's not a custody issue in terms of that. It's not that the husband and the wife were separated or divorced and one of them had custody over the children and the other didn't, and so they're violating a custody agreement. There's none of that issue. It's literally a father taking his children who he has perfect rights to have care of, and taking those children, and yet the mother doesn't know where they are. So there's this kind of like, that I found a really interesting kind of issue and commentary. However, this book was so boring. I didn't care about the main character, I just didn't care about. The whole story is told like from her perspective, and I just didn't give a shit. I found her so incredibly boring. This story also had the most unnecessary romance I think I've ever read in a book. There's a romance that comes up and you're just like, why is this here? It doesn't add anything to the story. It feels completely ridiculous in a story about a woman trying to get back her 2 children, trying to figure out what's happened to them. Oh, but we're also going to have this little like romancy thing going on over here. Like, why are you focused on that when you should be trying to get you're so focused on getting your kids back apparently, but then you're having this weird romance on the side. Like, and your husband's like literally just left you. You weren't having problems in your marriage. Like, it's just, you guys, I had a lot of issues with this book. I really, really didn't like it. I ended up giving that one 2 stars. And then the final book that I'm going to talk about in this recent reads video, the final book that I read in May was I Found You by Lisa Jewell. This is the 3rd Lisa Jewell book I think that I've read. It's a thriller. It's basically, we've got a couple of different storylines going on. We've got a man who's turned up on a beach, who has no memory of who he is. We're then also following the story of a woman who is an immigrant to the UK, it's in the UK, and she's an immigrant and her husband has not come home. And so he's missing, and when she contacts the police and they look into it a bit further, they tell her that her husband doesn't exist. So we're following that storyline as well. And then we're also following a storyline from the past of a brother and sister who are kind of on holidays in a like beach town, and like some things that are going on there. So my main issue with this book is the same issue that I've had with all of the Lisa Jewell that I've read, particularly with Then She Was Gone, that the story was just incredibly predictable. I enjoy her writing a lot, and I enjoy her characters and all of the kind of questions and moral dilemmas and issues that they're dealing with. I like all of those things in her books, but they're just so incredibly predictable. They're supposed to be thrillers, but right from the off you feel like you know what's going to, like what the outcome is, and then you never really stray away from that path. Like, I feel like from the synopsis I just told you, you can probably figure out at least part of what's going on in this story. And then I also had the issue that I found the ending of this book to be one of those books where everything was just tied up a little bit too neatly for my taste. For a thriller, I just feel like it's unrealistic when everything's a bit like happy, happy, happy type of endings. Not happy, happy, happy necessarily, but every like thing is kind of tied off with a, I don't need to know a character's like what happened to them after. Well, yes, it can be nice because you're invested in the characters. I just feel like it doesn't feel authentic to a thriller narrative, I guess you would say. So I ended up giving that a 3.5 star rating. Like I said, I will read more from Lisa Jewell. I really do enjoy her writing. I just find that for like the mystery aspect, this lighting is so bad, but for the mystery aspect of her novels, it's just always a bit too predictable for my taste. So yeah, I gave that one a 3.5 star. So that's it. Those are the books that I'm going to be talking about in this particular recent reads video. As I said, I will have another recent reads video coming up in a couple of days, which will have all of the books that I have read so far to this point in June. So stay tuned for that. I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below if you have read any of these books, what your thoughts were on them, were they the same as mine? Did you have a different opinion? I'd love to chat. Or what you guys have been reading recently and enjoying or not enjoying. I love to hear all of your bookish opinions, so let's chat in the comments down below. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. That is all I have for this video today. Bye guys!